Welcome to Commander Pat Alesia, commander of the Nassau County American Legion. And this is, you're hearing this on malcolmpresents.com, a internet platform with many shows, but this is one of the best, as I tell all my.
Thank you.
Anyway, Pat, I'll let you introduce our guest this week.
Okay, thank you, Malcolm. Today we have a very special guest with us this evening. He's the past 10th District Commander. He served 3 years on active duty. He's a fellow Vietnam combat veteran. Spent 15 years in the New York Army National Guard, 11 years in the Army Reserve. He's been a member of the American Legion for over 20 years and served as a post commander for several years, served as the county commander, Queens County commander, served as the 10th District Commander, with the asterisk of being the only 10th District Commander to serve 2 years in a row as a result of the COVID virus. And next year, he's scheduled to become the Department Vice Commander. And as a special note, Paul and I have been fraternity brothers, and we have been friends for over 50 years. So I introduce you to my friend, Paul Schottenhamel.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Most people wouldn't say that they're my friends, but thank you.
Well, welcome aboard. I love this. This is one of my routines, which I do I love somebody that's in charge of ICE. I always wonder where they got that word, and it must have been fun.
Well, what we'd like to do is start out by giving you an opportunity to talk a little bit about your military experiences on active duty.
All right. Yeah, I enlisted in 1968 as an infantryman. And in basic training, I found out I was eligible to go to the Officer Candidate School, which I went down to Fort Benning for the Infantry Officer Candidate School. And a year later, I was commissioned a second lieutenant in the infantry. I went to Airborne School and then served with the 82nd Airborne Division.
Which is, by the way, something we have in common also. Okay, go ahead.
And yeah, out of my OCS class, there were only 2 of us wound up going to the division, so after jump school. And I spent 4 months there, and then I got my orders for Vietnam. With the 82nd, I was a rifle platoon leader, which meant I had several squads of infantrymen and they're under me. And then I went to Vietnam. I was with the 1st Infantry Division in area north of Saigon. I was a mechanized infantry platoon leader. Mechanized infantry was kind of rare over there because of all the jungle, but we were able to get around pretty well. And then the 1st Division was pulled out in March or April of 1970, and I transferred over to the 1st Cavalry Division, took over another light infantry platoon, and we went into Cambodia a month later. I spent 6 weeks there until I was wounded, and not too seriously, but it got me out of the field anyway. And,
let me ask you a quick question. Did you know you were in Cambodia at the time?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
This is when President Nixon sent us in there on May 1st, 1970. We were limited to the depth of our incursion. And the North Vietnamese basically owned the border region between Vietnam and Cambodia. And they had all their supply bases in there. Our battalion found one of the largest caches. They nicknamed it the city because it was so large. And they had thousands and thousands of weapons, tons and tons of ammunition that they had stockpiled there. And we were making contact with the enemy almost every day, every other day, which was not what was happening while we were in Vietnam. And as I said, I was wounded and medevaced, and then I wound up as a company executive officer, so I did not have to go back out to the field.
Okay.
I returned from Vietnam in October of end of October 1970. Went to Fort Benning with the 197th Infantry Brigade, where I was the assistant S4, until I came off active duty in April 1971. Then I immediately joined the New York Army National Guard as the S3 Air of the operations staff area of the 1st Brigade of the 42nd Infantry Rainbow Division. And I spent the next 15 years bouncing around in the division. I held various staff positions, and I was a company commander for 2 years of the 106th Infantry Combat Support Company commander for 2 years. And then eventually I wound up in the division headquarters and as held several positions there. When it came time for me to get promoted, by this time I was a major, when it came time for me to get promoted to lieutenant colonel, you needed a slot to be in order to stay there. And there were no slots available left in the division, so I transferred to the Army Reserve, where I became an instructor for the Commanding General Staff Officers course, which was generally one of the highest schools that officers in the military attend. Only the people that eventually go on to general officers would go to the War College. So I was an instructor, and my background had basically prepared me all those years to teach that course, because I served in various staff areas from the company.
Was that full time with the National Guard, or were this
part-time? No, it was part-time. 48 drills a year, which is basically 12 weekends, 2 to 3 weeks on active duty, depending on what your position was. And that's in the National Guard. In the Army Reserve, I was instructor. We would teach classes during the year until, except for our annual training, where we go away for 2 weeks to teach the summer portion of the the course. It took 3 years to get through the Commanding General Staff Officer.
What did you do in real life?
Yeah, in real life. One of the things my brigade commander in the 42nd Division was assistant vice president for the telephone company. I asked him if the company was hiring, and I had just gotten back from Fort Benning, having taken, I was down there for 9 months for training. And he arranged for me to get a job with the telephone company, and I spent 34 years in the telephone company, bouncing around doing a bunch of different things. But mainly I was a central office technician. That was most of my career, and which basically handled the equipment for the telephone calls. But at the end, we were in the carrier, which is the part of the company that transmit those calls to all the other central offices, and eventually all around the country and around the world. So there everything was via fiber optic multiplexers, and it was interesting work. I also got to work down at Ground Zero after 9/11. One of the buildings that was seriously damaged down there was the 140 West Street building, which stood right across the street from One World Trade Center. So when that building came down, it did a lot of damage to that building, and it served a lot of the financial district down near Wall Street. So it was very important for on a national basis to get that building back up and running as best we could, to make sure that Wall Street, I think, was down about 1 week, but it took us months to put the network back together down there in southern Manhattan. And I worked down there. We were working 12 to 16 hours a day, 7 days a week down there.
Yeah, Paul, could you do me a favor?
Yes, sir.
Could you start again working for the telephone company? Because I found out that they are so messed up. They have you go like I have for AT&T, right? I have the Uverse
Yeah.
with my cable TV, with my internet, and I
Mhm.
also have them on my cell phone.
Yeah.
One computer there does not talk to the other computer. I'll call up for one thing, and I'll get somebody, of course, that's located, offshore someplace, and they're very nice. But then a week later, I'll get a letter that was, that it was like I really never talked to them. And when I go to call them up again after waiting a half hour to an hour, and then they're on their computer and they say, "Excuse me, our computer is slow." And then one computer that I spoke to last week didn't speak to this computer. And I'm saying, you're a communications company. I don't care how you communicate. You're supposed to communicate.
Matter of fact, this morning when I was talking to Pat about this,
Yeah.
I had trouble with my internet and I wanted to pull it up. And that's one of the things I hate calling up the telephone company. When I was working for them, you generally talk to a human being.
Right now you don't. Yeah.
Right. And that's
Yeah.
one of the things that just drives me nuts. And my job, actually, my first couple of years in the telephone company, I was a business office rep. And if you had problems with your telephone bills, you wanted a new service and that, I was the person you talked to.
And that's what I said. Can you go back? You sound like you're in a reason.
He sounds like he knows what he's talking about, right, Malcolm?
Today everything is they're using the technology. The gentleman I eventually talked to was actually sitting in India. Usually they don't tell you that. He was in India.
Crazy.
He fixed it though.
I get South America, I get the Philippines. Very nice people, and they speak English well.
Yeah,
so I have nothing wrong with
the accents. I have enough trouble dealing with English, but the accents. I'm sure you can tell by my New York accent that it's a little bit different.
Well, Pat's heard this story. I know about 40 years ago, I was driving cross country, and I got into an automobile accident in Texas, in Odessa, Texas, and somehow the Texas Rangers stopped. And I had been living in New York, so I spoke twice as fast as I speak now.
Yeah.
And the Rangers stopped, and I talk like this.
Yeah.
I swear it was like I was watching a TV show. It was like they had cotton in their mouth. Yeah. And they, aside from me not understanding them, they didn't understand me.
Yep.
You say, could you slow down a little bit? And between us, I had to slow down, or I had to slow down, and they had to speed up.
Yeah, I could believe that. That was one of the things about most of my time in the military in the States was in the South, Fort Benning, Georgia, Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and Fort Bragg. And I came back, and all my friends up here in New York City were commenting about my Southern accent that I had picked up. And but that's the Army does that no matter where you go. You've got that accent.
Yeah, and when I first was on active duty, I went to Fort Benning, and it took me about 30 days to understand what they were talking about. So it's
yeah.
But anyway,
the question I ask of people in Vietnam: what was your reception when you came back to the States, and how did you feel about it?
No, it was kind of strange. I personally did not really. I mean, a lot of people didn't talk about Vietnam, but nobody protest. I didn't see any protests that a lot of people say they witnessed. I used to work with a man who was a Vietnam veteran. This guy was 6'6", and he told me that when he at the airport that they were out there protesting him and throwing spitting on him, and I said nobody in his right mind would spit on a guy as big as you.
Yeah.
And, I really think that a lot of those stories are probably blown out of proportion. But one of the thing that really saved me the most was immediately joining, after I came off active duty, was immediately joining the National Guard. I was in a brigade headquarters, the senior officers in the brigade, because I was the first Vietnam era veteran officer to serve with them. And but all of the senior officers, they were all World War II and Korean veterans. the World War II brigade commander. He would serve with the 45th Division. He was in he had served in Sicily and in Italy and Anzio, and we shared a lot of compared a lot of things, how the military was operating. You know, he had just come back from Fort Benning for when he became brigade commander. They sent him down there to update him on the latest and the greatest of what the military was doing. And that's when I first met him. He had just gotten back. And he started asking me, he says, "Do you know what a dust-off is?" And I says, "Yeah, that's a helicopter medical evacuation for the wounded." And the colonel said to the rest of the staff, he says, "You see these young kids, they know everything." And then,
Paul,
a young first lieutenant.
What's interesting, Paul, is that when I came back from Vietnam, within 2 weeks, I became a member of the 187 Field Artillery in the New York Army National Guard. But the difference is where I was like the only one who had served in Vietnam.
Yeah.
But I think the problem that we had in general, Vietnam veterans coming home, is that we didn't come home as a unit. We came home as individuals, which is a big difference from what goes on today. So,
yeah, I remember when I first started thinking about getting involved in the veteran community. A member of my church is in the Catholic War veterans, and he said they had trouble getting members. They were all World War II veterans, and they wanted to get some young people, and because I wear my Vietnam veteran hat and whatever, and they approached me and said, "Well, get your friends together, your Vietnam veteran friends." And he said, "You know, that's the big problem, because you know, in World War II and a lot of Korea, just about everybody went, right? Everybody served, and they came back honorably. Most Vietnam veterans, they came back, and first of all, they kept separate because of what was going on in the country. Most of them didn't want to talk about it. They didn't want to admit it.
Exactly.
And I think that's what kept them out of it for a long time. And it really wasn't until the late 70s, early 80s, when all of a sudden that's when they built the wall, the Vietnam Wall. And they had a big welcome home parade. And I didn't go down there that day. I could have, but I didn't. And but because I don't know, I just didn't feel right about it. It just seemed strange. I regretted later that I didn't.
I tell you, Paul, I was working for the New York City Board of Ed at the time, and they let us go. We basically had the day off if we wanted to go.
Yeah.
And I did participate in it, and it was a very uplifting experience.
Yeah, and I think that was an important thing for the Vietnam veterans, and even today. You talk to the soldiers of today, the veterans. I mean, the full timers, the people that that made a career out of it, and they basically said it was the Vietnam veterans that really made it better for them to serve, because once the country started figuring out that the Vietnam veterans were not the cause of the war. And we served honorably to the best of our ability. I remember a quote from Colonel Harry Summers, who wrote a book that I read, and at the beginning it was a Newsweek reporter asked him, "Why did you go to Vietnam?" And Harry Summers turned to him and he said, "Don't you know you sent me?" And I really think
interesting, very interesting.
You know what this thing was all about. The soldiers, we do not have any real say in where we're going. Sure. And, you know, once we're getting in there, we have to follow orders. And, you know, it's a political decision to where we wind up going, and or a military decision. And it's not our fault. We did not start that war. You know, we were stuck with it.
Yeah, I think that was a major problem with the reception that you guys got, because we or the people that were protesting could not separate the government policy from you guys,
exactly.
Foot soldiers coming back.
Exactly.
No,
absolutely.
I know we're going to get into the American Legion and the veteran community, but that was one of the another problem that I did not witness any of that because I did not get involved with that until after I retired or stopped drilling with the military because I didn't have time. So I did not get. It wasn't until 1997 that I got into the veteran community. And
now, let me ask you a quick question, Paul. Is that because of you were raising a family and were working?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And of course, well, you know as well as I do, the reserve structure takes a lot of your time.
Sure.
Especially if you're an officer, and
right.
You really don't have time to play around. But I was getting, it was like getting for a weekend a month. I was getting the equivalent of an extra week's pay on my civilian job, and that helped me. I put my kids through Catholic schools, and the tuition was not cheap.
And you're Jewish. That's interesting.
I mean, really, that was it was important to me. But I loved the military. All my life, I loved the military, and if you go back in my family tree, both my grandfathers fought in were in the Bavarian army in World War I. Two of my uncles served with them, and they were older, and they served in World War I with their father. My father came to America in 1926 and stayed here, but the rest of his family was still in Germany. He had a younger brother that died of wounds that he received with the German army fighting in Russia. He didn't know that his brother was dead until the end of the war. And my father was drafted into the American army. He was still a German citizen. So, most of my cousins served in the military. It was just what we did.
Yeah.
We spent a fascinating time, and I didn't realize time is up, almost up. But how did you get involved with the American Legion?
Yeah, that was the
okay.
key.
Well, I wound up with the Vietnam veterans, and they turned around and they were meeting at American Legion Hall, the Joseph B. Garrity post. And I loved talking to the World War II veterans that were there because it was like talking to history.
Yeah, you got it.
And so I started talking with them, and I wound up joining the American Legion, and they put me right to work. And
but Paul, were you retired at the time? In 1997?
In 1997, no, I was retired. I stopped drilling from the military.
Oh, okay. But you still worked. Okay. Yeah.
But I was still working for the telephone company.
Right.
I didn't retire from the telephone company to 2008.
Okay.
Right. But it was like talking to history, which is what I loved about it. Now I found out that I'm history because I'm old. And
by the way, a quick mention here. Paul is the historian for the 42nd Rainbow Division Association. I pushed him in that direction.
How did you guys meet?
At City College.
At City College. Oh, okay.
Yes.
How come I never met you guys?
You already graduated.
You were probably gone.
And I was protesting. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Fine.
It's okay.
Somebody had to do it. I think. I don't begrudge anybody protesting as long as they're protesting the right.
Listen, if it was up to me, neither of you would have been in Vietnam. Which I don't know if you minded.
Maybe
you're right. Like Paul said, you go where you.
I don't blame you for where you went.
Yeah.
But that was the thing, and then they got hooked in the American Legion, and they started going to coming up to the meetings. In 2006, I wound up going to county meetings. By 2008, I was the adjutant for the county, which is like the secretary of the organization, and stayed there. And then I think it was 2015, I became county commander. And then I'm still working at the county level, and I'm involved in a lot of things. And as Pat said, I'll be, if everything works out, next year I'll be a department, which is the state level vice commander. Basically, I have the counties from Staten Island to Montauk Point. That will be my area.
And now, if you were talking to vets coming out now, or you know that were in the saw battles in the Middle East or Desert Storm, how would you recruit them? Why would you say they should join the Legion?
Well, the first thing I would say is you getting the GI Bill. The GI Bill was put together by the American Legion in 1943. They were the ones who got Congress, Roosevelt to back it, but Congress to pass the law to create the VA, the GI Bill, which changed America because it allowed the returning veterans to go to college. It reinforced the VA hospital system, which was taking care of the veterans. And everything that veterans consider normal part of their service, that so much of that was gained by the American Legion, and it was all those were the World War I veterans who built the Legion in 1919, and we continue that today. It's really important. The Agent Orange stuff here, taking care of the victims of Agent Orange, that's going on there. It was the Vietnam veterans had a big part in getting those benefits for people. I myself have 40% disability. My hearing is totally screwed up, and I get some PTSD issues, and so I get some money for that, and so it's important that but if the American Legion isn't there to ask for it, and we die out, who is going to be taking care of the veterans?
That's the problem.
Taking care of veterans, and that's the important thing. And we're also concerned about, you know, what's going on our national, the four pillars of the American Legion, taking care of veterans, taking care of the families of the veterans who didn't come home, worried about the military to make sure that the service members today get what they're entitled to, that they're taken care of, that they're given the equipment and the training that they're supposed to be getting. This is all important stuff. And we fight those battles in Washington all the time to get Congress to do that. Without the American Legion and the other veteran service organizations, because they're also in that battle, that stuff would never have happened.
Yes, so the American Legion not only takes care of vets, from previous generations, taking care of vets of this generation, taking care of active soldiers now, and looking into the future.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And that's what makes us so proud to be able to take care of that. One of the things we wound up doing, a big thing that I got involved with, was the burial of unclaimed veterans here in
right.
And people who die don't have any family to bury them. They're entitled, if they're veterans, and they're entitled to burial in a national cemetery until COVID reared its ugly head. We were one of the groups that were handling funerals for that. We would actually get a funeral home to take the body and take it out to the national cemetery, and they would give them the recognition in their burial. We accept the flag. I would have probably 24 people out there for the funeral. And it was really something else here that we wind up doing. And without that, those veterans would probably wind up in a pauper's grave on Hart Island.
I forget what movie it was. Yeah, you guys probably see it. The transportation of bodies.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yes.
I forget what it was, but the honor that they gave the body, and there was a soldier that stayed with the body 24/7, even when they stayed at the airport. He stayed at the airport with the casket.
Well, those are the active duty people.
Yeah.
And, that happens because the system is set up for that. But it's the veterans that come home. And that's one of the things that I do, is that I try to find out as much about the veteran as I can. I get up online on Ancestry.com, on Google, find out whatever I can about that individual, because all I know is, when he was born, the dates he served in the military, and when he died.
Yeah.
Most of the time, I don't even get a copy of their DD-214. So
Mhm.
I got to kind of put this thing together at short notice. But one of my things is to try to make this person, which nobody knew, because these unclaimed veterans generally live alone, but they fly under the radar. They're not. Do not have anybody to take care of their final disposition. And while the government will pay for the burial, I mean, normally what they would do is just drop off the body and then bury them. And then maybe once a month they would have a ceremony just to mention their names at there. But we're there when we actually bring the body out there.
Interesting.
And to honor that. I've made national news. I was on NBC National Nightly News. They came to follow us. New York Times did a story on us. And just to say that, and that's one of my proudest things that I wound up doing. Unfortunately, with COVID, that became kind of impossible to do because the numbers involved and a lot of the restrictions that we had on that. Hopefully, we'll get back to that. So
anyway, guys, believe it or not, we've run out of time.
Oh, okay.
I have a question which just came up and has nothing to do with what we're talking about. But one of my heroes in the baseball world was Gil Hodges,
Mhm.
who was just nominated to the Hall of Fame.
Okay.
It's a big thing. But I just read something that he played baseball for the American Legion.
Oh, yeah.
And does the American Legion baseball have anything to do with the American Legion?
Well, it's
Sure.
American Legion that sponsors
Yeah.
American Legion.
But and they said he's the 80th member that played for the American Legion to be in the Hall of Fame.
Okay. Well, there's an awful lot of people. We also have the Boy State program, which teaches
Yes.
young men between their junior and senior year of high school about government. They take them and put them in there, and they build a town government, a county government, a state government, and they have to run for office. They got to get elected. They have to write bills and at each level, and they learn about.
And it's the American. I was going to say, Paul, it's the American Legion Post that sponsor the student to attend Boy State, which is very good.
And we need that because it's a certain, which I read just recently, that they don't teach civics.
Yeah.
No.
People don't know government. It's an amazing lack of knowledge that the modern student has that doesn't know what government is, how they're elected, how bills get passed. Anyway, guys, thank you very much. And Paul, we have to have you back again because we didn't barely scratch the surface.
We'll have him back for phase 2. How about that?
Well, what we want to do, part of the show is to get this as a spokes show for the American Legion.
Yeah.
So if you have any ideas about future guests or what we could talk about or want to talk about or events, please call. Let us know what it is and we'll have it on the show. Because basically this show is the American Legion show. I host it, I put it on my website, but it's your guys' show.
All right.
Thank you. We'll talk about that, Paul.
Okay, and in the meantime, for you guys back east, stay warm.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
You're expecting the blizzard coming over here. It's 70 degrees. I'm in Los Angeles.
Oh boy, enjoy.
Sunshine.
Moved from there last year. Actually down in Raleigh.
Anyway, guys, so again, keep warm, keep safe, and I will speak to you next week.
Thank you, Malcolm, and thank you, Paul. I'll be in touch.
Bye.
All right. Enjoy the weekend. Safe and steady.
All right.
You're listening to MalcolmPresents.com.
Thank you, Malcolm.
Heard worldwide, which it always fascinates me. You can go to any country in the world. If they get internet, they can get the show.
That's great. That's great.
Technology is great when it works.